Hi, I'm Kira Greeny and my project is tide pool photo documentation. I attended 3 tide pool locations to photograph, the first of which being Pillar Point and Half Moon Bay. There were sort of harsh conditions this day with rain and strong winds, but that made no difference to the life in the tide pools. While photographing the organisms, I was able to further look into species I had previously read about and could later make a photo album book out of all the pictures. To start things off, a tide pool is a pocket of water in the intertidal zone, isolated from the rest of the beach, that generally form along rocky coasts and trap water as the shoreline recedes at low tide, allowing marine life to inhabit the pools. However, because tide pools are only formed and accessible at low tide, I had to plan out what day and time to visit each beach, as it is best to visit when the tide is in the negatives. There are several families of species that reside in tide pools, one of which being invertebrates, which don't have a backbone. Common invertebrate species include sea anemones, periwinkles, which are small snails, and sea stars. Sea anemones are very bright and colorful carnivores which use a paralyzing barb to prey on organisms with no exterior shell. Organisms with shells, such as periwinkles, can safely seek refuge near anemones to hide from other organisms. Periwinkles help shape entire tide pools by slowly eroding rocks over time. Periwinkle shells are often used by hermit crabs once the snail is eaten. Sea stars prey on mussels, which can be an invasive species and help sustain proper biodiversity. However, sudden die-off in 2013 caused by an unknown disease led to sea star populations dramatically dropping, leading to a loss of biodiversity in many places. Another common family found in the tide pool is the crustacean, which are similar to invertebrates, but they have an exoskeleton. These include rock crabs, hermit crabs, and barnacles. Most of these species, such as hermit crabs and barnacles, eat detritus, which further cleans and purifies the water for other species to live in. As you can see in this video, there is also lots of plant life in tide pools, such as kelp. The second location I attended was the Duxbury Reef tide pools in Bolinas. The weather on this day was much better than the previous day in Half Moon Bay, although there were a lot more people. At this tide pool, the farther into the inner tide zone I went, the more biodiversity I found. As I made my way further away from the beach, I came across several sea stars. It was exciting to see several alive sea stars, as it is not entirely common to come across them after the 2013 die-off. As I mentioned earlier, mussels can be an invasive species. They have become extremely overpopulated, especially since the sea star die-off. As you can see in these videos, they can absolutely dominate the space in tide pools, which doesn't allow room for any other species to live in that space. This causes a lack of biodiversity when one species dominates the ecosystem over any others. The following clips demonstrate how shelled organisms can seek safety near sea anemones. As can be seen here, periwinkles and barnacles are hiding near the anemones because they know that they are not the anemone's prey, as they have shells and cannot be affected by the paralyzing barb. My last location was actually at the same beach, as that beach is about 6 acres with several miles of tide pools. However, this was much farther to the right than the last location. It was at this location that I came across this fossil, as well as other plant life, such as bull kelp, which I had not seen at previous locations. I also encountered several of these organisms, which I have not yet identified. In the end, most of the photos came out very well, even in the harsh lighting. This was a very good experience as it allowed me to get a visual representation and hands-on experience with learning about the organisms I had previously read about. Thank you for watching.